If I was to just use a few exercises to help guide dog handlers endure the stresses of using a guide dog and not have their bodies get broken down, here are some of my absolute go-tos. Of course, there's different isometric exercises, and I have videos on that, but here are 3 no equipment exercises you can do that are going to help relieve a lot of the issues that come with using a guide dog. Number 1 is a seated trap stretch. That trap muscle is the one that connects from your shoulder up into your neck. A lot of people get headaches from this, and we're also going to be having this be what's kind of elevating and depressing our scapula and allowing for that movement in the shoulder, but it's going to get really tight when using a guide dog harness a lot of times. So what I can do is, preferentially with my harness hand, but you can do both sides and test them out individually and kind of see if you have a large asymmetry or not, is anchor one hand underneath a chair, and then I'm gonna let that drag this left shoulder down. I might feel a little bit of tension even further down into my arm or up in my neck. Then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tilt my head away. I like to imagine that I'm just trying to pour water out of my right ear. And if this is cozy enough, then I can add a little bit of pressure, but very, very little. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay my right hand on top of my head to add a little bit of pressure. I'm not pulling at any point. I'm being nice and gentle in order to amplify this stretch. And then once I've done this for 30 seconds to a minute, I'm going to take my hand off, relax my head up, and then release. This is, again, a really great one in order to stretch out that trap and take some of the tension off of that system. Next is going to be some exaggerated arm circles. And we're going to be doing these because a lot of times with the harness, or even blind people using a cane, we have our delt way out the front. And then we're going to be having that shoulder turned on a lot of times, but it's always reaching down and in front of us, which is going to lead to the front of the shoulder and the bicep getting really tight. So what we can actually do is open up this entire system while also being able to practice reaching overhead, which we're not usually asked to do very much. And that can be really good for rotator cuff health. So we're getting a lot of things out of this as well. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to reach my hand out the front, go into like a waiter pose where I imagine holding a giant platter in my hand, reaching straight up to the sky, and then I'm going to scoop that hand back through. You can also let the hips go along for the ride a little bit here. And we're just going to be doing these arm circles, moving nice and steadily. Now, when I scoop this way with my palm, then I'm actually going to be opening up a lot of the nerves that track all the way up here as well. So we're really getting like 4 different benefits out of this exercise. If you get sick of going forward, you can always reach backwards as well. Like you're trying to reach something far behind you, turn a little bit, and then scoop over the front. 10 to 20 reps of this is going to be a really great start, and even hit those on both sides. Again, looking for those asymmetries and taking care of both sides. We don't only want to take care of our harness side. And then lastly is a turn to crawl. This is going to be a phenomenal one because we are working on core stability. We are working on symmetry. We're working on being able to keep our shoulder down into what's called depression. And then we are also loading up the hip in some unique ways that's going to cause it to not be caving in as much anymore. We're going to allow the outside of that hip to function as it's supposed to, while also getting some rotation of the hip that we don't normally get. So again, ton of benefits with just one exercise. It's called a turn to crawl. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to be down on my right elbow, my forearm pointing straight out in front of me. And I'm going to be lying on my right side with only my forearm down and the outside of my right thigh down. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my knees slightly out the front. A lot of people want to start almost like a traditional side plank, but we want those knees a little bit more out the front, and you'll see why. Then I'm going to fix my neck and shoulder position first. What I want to do is I want to take this right shoulder and I want to shrug it down towards my armpit, almost like I'm trying to put it into my pocket. You're gonna notice more length between the shoulder and the ear this way, then think nice and long in the neck as well. So we're not moving our head around any wonky ways. We want our spine to be from belly button all the way up through the chest and the neck and the top of the skull to be one straight line. So I'm gonna be here, nice and tight, and I can even tactily double check that the muscles in my armpit are nice and tight. And then I'm gonna use the outside of this right knee to come up, bringing the other leg up. So now only the base of my right knee and my forearm are on the ground. And then I'm going to turn and rotate like I'm turning to crawl like a baby. This is actually where this comes from. Then I'm going to right myself and come back down. Again, tactically, we're looking for the outside of the hip to be firing, the core muscles on the bottom side, which is the right side in this case, to be nice and locked in. You can tap those in order to make sure they're nice and tight. And then up in the armpit, make sure that it's nice and tight as well. So we're keeping our shoulder down, our core nice and tight, and then operating out of the hip and rotating out of the hip and the shoulder that way. Returning back and back down. It's going to take a little bit to get used to this, but once you've tempered yourself to these sensations and then condition these muscles to this, it's going to help tremendously.